They came like a storm without warning, riders that swallowed the horizon. No army in Europe had ever moved so fast or killed so cleanly. In a single winter, kingdoms fell, cities vanished, and faith itself trembled. The year was 1241, when the Mongols reached Europe's heart. This is the story of how the East met the West, and the wall of Christendom finally broke. The unseen enemy. Long before the cathedrals of Krakow and Buda would burn, the Mongol Empire was already the largest land power the world had ever seen. Born from the harsh steppes of Mongolia, they were forged by cold, hunger, and endless war. Their leader, Temujin, Genghis Khan, unified the tribes with one vision, that all the world must submit to the rule of the eternal blue sky. His sons and grandsons turned that vision into a machine, one that devoured kingdoms from China to Persia, from the Caspian to the Caucasus. But to the princes of Europe, the Mongols were a rumor, a whisper carried by merchants and monks, Tartars from the east, horsemen who drink blood, demons who destroy cities overnight. They did not believe, until it was too late. The first sparks, 1223. The first European blood spilled against the Mongols was not in Poland or Hungary, but on the plains of Kalka River in 1223. The princes of Kievan Rus, proud, divided, and unprepared, gathered their armies to meet strange raiders who had crossed the Caucasus. They thought it was a border skirmish. It was a warning. The Mongols feigned retreat for 9 days. The Rus pursued, confident of victory. Then the trap closed. At Kalka, entire armies were surrounded and annihilated. 10,000 men died in a single day. Captured princes were crushed beneath wooden boards, a Mongol custom, spared the spilling of noble blood, but not the agony. After the slaughter, the Mongols vanished back into the steppe. Europe sighed in relief. They thought it was over. They were wrong. The return of the storm. 1237. 14 years later, they returned. But this time, it wasn't a raid. It was an invasion. At their head rode Batu Khan, grandson of Genghis, and beside him, the brilliant General Subutai, the greatest military mind of his age, a man who could map a continent and destroy an empire in the same campaign. They struck the Rus's principalities first. In the winter of 1237, snow covered the forests of Ryazan. By spring, nothing remained but ashes. Moscow was burned. Vladimir, Suzdal, Kiev, all fell one by one. Stone walls cracked beneath flaming catapults, and those who hid in churches were burned alive as the bells melted above them. By 1240, Eastern Europe was no longer a wall. It was an open gate. The call to Christendom. When news reached the West, it sounded like myth. Pope Gregory IX called for prayers. Kings argued about sending aid. But the Holy Roman Empire was fractured. France was crusading in the Levant. England was divided by its own barons. So the task fell to the borderlands, to Poland and Hungary, the frontier of Christendom. In Buda, King Bela IV of Hungary sent frantic letters to every monarch in Europe. The Mongols have destroyed Russia. They march now for us. If we fall, you will follow. But Europe was deaf to his warning. They saw Hungary's plight as distant thunder, someone else's storm. Poland burns. In March 1241, the first Mongol detachments crossed into Lesser Poland. At Tursko and Chmielnik, Polish knights charged bravely and were cut down like grass. Then came Legnica. Henry the Pious, Duke of Silesia, gathered every knight he could, Poles, Germans, and Templars. They stood beneath the sign of the cross, banners gleaming in sunlight. Before them stretched an army of ghosts, disciplined riders in layered armor, each bowstring drawn before the horns could sound. The Mongols feigned retreat, as they always did. Henry chased, as they always hoped. When the trap closed, his army was surrounded on all sides. The battle lasted only hours. When it ended, Henry's head was paraded on a spear. Poland had fallen. The road to Hungary was open. The heart of Europe, Mohi, 1241. Spring brought death to the plains of Hungary. Near the Sajo River, King Bela's army, 60,000 strong, waited behind a wooden bridge. Knights, crusaders, peasants, and priests stood side by side, believing this would be the stand that saved Europe. Across the river, Subutai's forces waited, not thousands, but tens of thousands more. At dawn, the Mongols attacked. Flaming arrows rained from the sky. Drums echoed across the mist. They sent a decoy across the bridge, while Subutai's engineers built another crossing downstream. When the Hungarians realized they were surrounded, it was already too late. The camp became a slaughterhouse. Warriors were trampled into the mud by horses and burning wagons. Those who fled were chased for miles, cut down by riders who never tired. The Battle of Mohi ended not in defeat, but in obliteration. The heart of Hungary was broken. Europe's last wall had crumbled. The scourge reaches Vienna. After Mohi, nothing stood between the Mongols and the heart of Europe. By summer, they were at the gates of Vienna. Monasteries were sacked, villages erased, rivers clogged with corpses. Chroniclers wrote of entire towns that vanished overnight, of black smoke on the horizon for weeks without end. Europe braced for the end of the world, and then they stopped. The mysterious retreat. In December 1241, the Mongol armies withdrew as suddenly as they had come. No one knew why. Was it divine intervention? A miracle? The truth was simpler and colder. Far to the east, in the Mongolian capital of Karakorum, the great Khan Ogadei was dead. By the ancient law of the steppes, all princes of Genghis's line had to return home to choose his successor. So they left, not defeated, but unfinished. Europe had not survived by strength. It had survived by chance. The aftermath of fear. When the smoke cleared, the scale of destruction was unimaginable. Hungary's population was reduced by half. Entire regions lay empty. Cities like Kiev and Krakow were skeletons of stone. King Bela rebuilt his kingdom behind new stone fortresses, and across Europe, rulers suddenly learned the language of fear. The Mongols became a myth, not merely conquerors, but the wrath of God himself. Letters from monks and travelers carried the same haunting refrain. The Tartars are coming again. But they never did. At least, not like before. Lessons of the broken wall. The Mongol invasion of Eastern Europe was more than a military disaster. It was a revelation. Europe discovered its own fragility, that kingdoms divided by pride cannot stand against unity forged by discipline and speed. While knights fought for glory, the Mongols fought with precision, using spies, maps, logistics, and fear as weapons sharper than any sword. They understood something Europe did not, that victory belongs not to the strongest, but to the swiftest mind. And yet, the Mongols also learned something. Beyond the Carpathians, their supply lines stretched thin, their horses starved in strange forests, their scouts met resistance from scattered but stubborn survivors. The East had struck the West, but could not hold it. The empire that never was. When Batu Khan returned to the steppes, he built a new realm, the Golden Horde, a reminder that Europe was not conquered, only spared. For centuries, Eastern Europe would live under its shadow, paying tribute, fearing return, yet surviving. And in that survival was something profound, the birth of resilience. Poland rebuilt. Hungary rose again. Even Russia, though enslaved, would one day turn the lessons of the Mongols into its own imperial destiny. The wall had broken, but from its ruins, Europe learned to fortify its soul. Epilogue. Echoes of the Steppe. Today, the Mongol invasion feels like a distant legend, but its echoes remain, in the maps of nations, in the fear of invasion, and in the understanding that civilization itself is never safe. The horsemen from the east came not to destroy Europe, but to remind it that walls built of pride and paper will always fall. History remembers battles as lines on maps, but sometimes a single storm redraws the world. And in 1241, the storm had a name: the Mongols. Subscribe to Timeless Questions channel to receive more thought-provoking content about philosophy, human nature, and the mysteries of existence.